Hey guys, I'm Brian McCauley, and welcome to, well, not my shop this week. I'm in a hotel room. This is going to be my weekly shop update for March 1st, 2017. So, let me back up before I get to questions because I asked for questions in the last update, and you guys obliged, believe me, which is really cool. But so what's been going on? I put out a video last week on making dominoes, floating tenons for the festival domino, which was actually sort of inspired by Sean Rubino. He's a co-host on the Dusty Life podcast. He posted a picture on Instagram of some dominoes that he had made, and I was out of a couple of sizes, and I thought, well, instead of buying them, I might as well make them. It's not like I can't make them. Might as well make them. So I posted some pictures of the dominoes that I had made, and a couple of people asked me to show how I did it. So with Sean's blessing, I made a video. So you can see that video. Is it this side? One of the sides. I'm recording this on my computer as opposed to my phone. I practiced really. It should be this side if I'm recording with my phone, but now I feel like since I'm on my computer, it's going to be on this side. I'll get it. I promise. So anyways, go check that out. I started working on the walnut extending trestle table thing. So that's coming along quite nicely. Got the top done and the breadboard ends are fit, and I'm going to start working on the slide mechanism for, the extending portion of the table and then the base. And then I'll finish it and should be done and delivered, hopefully in the next week or two. Over this past weekend, my buddies Gib Clark, Mark Saunders, and Tim Webster helped me move a lot of the lumber that I purchased from Robin. Her name's Robin, the tool lady, the lady that I bought the jointer from. And I also moved the radial arm saw that I purchased into the shop. It's a 16-inch DeWalt Radial Arm Saw. So I'll throw some photos of that up here. So that's what's been happening in the shop so far. So let's get into some questions here. And these are in no particular order. They're just sort of as I come to them on my phone. Okay, so this first question comes from Charlie Langridge. And Charlie is a patron over on Patreon. So if you want a guaranteed way to get your questions answered, there you go. So here it is. He says he's just starting out. He has a circular saw, but he's looking to make his next purchase. And he wants to know whether I would recommend a table saw, but it'd have to be like a portable size one, like a small DeWalt, or a nice rail saw, like a track saw. And he says he's in the UK, so it's also worth pointing out that they don't have dado stacks over there. So for doing things that would require a dado stack, he has a router to do that sort of thing with. And so I said to him that it really all depends on space, the amount of space that he has. When I first started out, I had a contractor-style table saw. It was a Delta, and I built it into a larger table so that I had more support, right? Because the tables on those small saws are kind of small. So if he has that option, if he has the room to build it into a larger structure, then I would go with the table saw. If he doesn't have the room to do that, then I would go with the track saw. The track saws are awesome. I use mine all the time, and they're great for really any kind of cut. The only downside to a track saw over a table saw is you can't really cut joinery with a track saw like you can with a table saw. But he's got the router, so you can cut joinery with a router. And since he can't put a dado stack in the table saw, cutting joinery with the table saw would kind of be a bit of a pain in the butt anyways. Just have to make a lot of passes. So if you got the space, I'd say go with the table saw and build it into a larger structure, a larger table. If not, go with the track saw and do your joinery with the router, which even if you have the table saw, you might end up doing the joinery with the router anyways. Alright, so there we go. Next one. So this one comes from Josh Mann, and he is a bit curious about my former career. He says that I mentioned having weapons training on the podcast. Um, so yeah, prior to doing this woodworking thing full time, I was a federal special agent. I worked for the IRS. So if you think of like the FBI or the DEA, they have special agents. Well, the IRS has special agents too. And part of that job, we carried guns and conducted search warrants and all that type of stuff. One of my duties as a special agent is I was a firearms instructor. So I ran the firearms ranges, and I helped train other special agents on how to properly use their weapons. So that was what that was about. And prior to that, I was in the Army, and I was in the infantry, and there's all kinds of fun guns that you get to play with there. Let's see, what else do we got? Ben Green would like to know, how cool is it to be on the same podcast as Kyle Toth and the other dude? The other dude is Sean Rubino, and he's awesome. So don't forget that. Kyle's just a kick-ass guy. He's super talented and he's super awesome, and I'm really lucky to call him a friend. Sean too. We have a lot of fun on the podcast, and yeah, he's a cool guy. Super fun to hang out with. Someone wants me to clean my shop. I work in my shop, man. Come on. This is from Damo Vegan. DamoVegan. I think that's how you say it. He wants to know what my biggest fear was from going full-time as a woodworker. I guess moving to a new area and trying to rebuild a clientele, like a client base. When we lived in Maryland, I had a pretty good client base, a lot of repeat customers. Moving here, the area is certainly not as affluent, and so there have been some challenges with pricing and finding my market and all of that stuff. But I think I've got all that figured out. That was a pretty big fear. To be completely honest with you guys, this isn't my only source of income. Like I mentioned, I was in the Army. I was injured, so I do get payments from the VA every month. And the reason that we moved to Pennsylvania is because the cost of living is significantly cheaper than it was where we lived in Maryland. And the money that I get from the VA, while it isn't enough to completely pay for all of my bills, it pays for a good portion of them. So, between the money I get from creating content online and the furniture sales, the commissions, that makes up the gap. So it's not like it's my only source of income. I don't want people to think that, because it's not true. Let's see, what else do we got here? Brian over at Bearcat Wood asked, what is your shop lacking that you would like to do or get for it? I'd like to get a big CNC or a multi-router. That would be super cool. But I with the CNC, I don't necessarily want to make signs or cut out project parts or anything like that. I would use it more as probably a milling tool for larger slabs and things like that, for flattening boards, that kind of stuff. Plus, I think it'd just be fun, to be able to make different parts and stuff if I wanted to. So I would probably go with the CNC. What else do we have? Oh, this is a good one. This is from Antoine Poitras, Poitras. Sorry, I'm horrible with names. But he wants to know, he has two questions that are somewhat related. He asks, what was my biggest tool regret? And people often talk about the game changer tools, so like the Festool Domino, the Track Saw, Incra Systems, etc., that are all somewhat expensive investments. What are some game changers that you discovered that were around $100 or less? So my biggest tool regret, probably my first jointer. I bought the Jet 10-inch combo machine. It just wasn't big enough for what I wanted to do. It didn't get great reviews when it first came out. There were a lot of issues with the alignment and keeping the tables coplanar and things like that. The hell? Got it. But mine didn't have those issues. But the biggest issues that it did have is that the in-feed and out-feed tables were really, really short. And building larger furniture, it was really hard to flatten faces and straighten edges on that jointer. I shouldn't have bought it. I should have just saved up for, a bigger one. I got it because it had the 10-inch capacity, which I thought was awesome. But it was awesome, but the table lengths just made it relatively useless. It was difficult for me to use. And $100 or less game changers. For this, I'm going to go with steel, man. I use a lot of vintage hand planes, so I upgraded a lot of the irons with Veritas irons. I think they're the 01 versions, the 01 steel. Those are awesome. Not necessary. You can get by just fine with the stock irons. But I feel like I can tell a difference. Maybe it's just because I spent the money on them. I don't know. But I feel like I can tell a difference. They feel more solid. I feel like they chatter less. That kind of stuff. I also got the chip breakers to go along with them. And the Woodworker 2, the Forest Woodworker 2 saw blade. That blade's awesome. It's a little more than $100. I think it's 130, 120, something like that. But it's a great blade. I love it. So for, cheaper side investments, I would say, right around $100. The steel, blades, irons, that kind of stuff. Let's go with 2 more. We'll do 2 more. Okay, so Code Monkey WW has a question about my extending trestle table. He says he's planning on building it, and his question is, if the breadboard ends extend and aren't glued in, how does that keep the tabletop flat? So if you look in the plans, and I'll link the video here somewhere, the breadboard ends are attached with dominoes, and they're attached in such a way that the only difference is they're not pinned. They're not doweled in place, so you can pull those breadboards out and put a leaf in. But the dominoes are tight enough in the mortises that there isn't any play vertically, and as the table expands and contracts, it's allowed to do that because the mortises on the table side are larger than the dominoes themselves, so it allows it to expand and contract around the domino horizontally, but it's tight vertically, so it still keeps the tabletop flat that way. Hopefully that answers your question. Like I said, I'll link the video and you guys can check it out. It's kind of hard to explain without seeing it. And let's do one more. This is from Scott Sonico. He says, I've noticed that you've upgraded a few tools over time, such as your jointer and planer. Were these upgrades primarily for speed of production, or did they increase the quality of your work? Perhaps a combination of both. Thanks. I just got really good deals on them. The 15-inch planer that I bought, I found on Craigslist. It was $300, and at the time my shop only had 110 power, and the motor on it could be wired for either 110 or 220. And I hadn't seen any other 15-inch planers that could run on 110, so I jumped on it. I got by fine with the 12-inch lunchbox that I was using before, but all the lunchbox planers, they suffer from snipe, and they are limiting. the 12 inches, you know, every once in a while you come up with something that you'd like to put through there that's wider than 12 inches, right? So when I saw the planer, I jumped on it, mostly because I got a really good deal. The jointer, basically the same situation. I got a great deal on it. I paid $250 for it, and it's a 12-inch jointer. It's unheard of, right? And I had sold my other one, and I was doing all of my, flattening of face and straightening an edge with hand planes. And now that I'm doing this full time, I need to be a little faster than that. So this 12-inch jointer I found, I mean, it was a no-brainer. I bought it. So there you go. Questions. Awesome. That was actually really cool. I was super surprised that, I got so many questions. So I really, really appreciate that, and I think that's awesome. There are more in here, and I will maybe do this again and go through some more of those questions. And in the meantime, I guess if you have more, send them my way. Maybe if there's enough interest, I'll even do like a live Q&A type thing. Like I said, I was really surprised I got as many questions as I did. So if the interest is there, we can do like a live thing. I think that'd be fun. So that's gonna be it for now. I realize this is a little awkward, but I'm not in the shop right now. I'm in a hotel, so I figured great time to answer some questions. So until next week, go build something. All right, bye guys.